Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the NACTA webinar. Today, our special guest is Jim Smith. He is the President, CEO, God of all gods for everything you want to know about learning about special needs. My name, in case you don't know who I am, is Lorene Romero. I am your moderator for today. Going to do a little bit of housekeeping before I put myself on mute, and I know Jim's really looking forward to me hitting the mute button, but I got to get the little business part in first. I want to remind everybody this is being recorded, so that way you can go back afterwards. I will send you the link, and it will take you to our YouTube account. NACTA does have a YouTube account where we keep all of our recordings, and Jim's session will be there. I encourage you, actually, everyone to subscribe to the YouTube account. It's specifically for NACTA webinars. And then also Lisa Watson, who is our head of marketing, also will put up from time to time some separate videos that will be educational for you to watch. So I'm going to put everybody on mute. That way squeaky chairs and background sounds do not interrupt Jim's presentation. And as I mentioned, this will be available for you in the future. We also have a chat box and a question box. If you have questions for Jim that you'd like him to answer after his presentation, please put them in the question box and I will read them for you. For the chat box, that's used if you have a question for me directly, and I can see what I can do to help you out. So for now, Jim, darling, man
yes,
of all
Mommy.
mans, awesome
yes.
dude. I know. I'll, send me the check later.
Okay, no problem.
I am going to turn the reins over to you, and I'm looking forward to what you have to say. And as always, thank you again for being such a wonderful supporter of NACTA. We couldn't do this without you. I'm going to put myself on mute. Here you go.
Thanks so much, Lorene, and good afternoon, everybody. If you're in the Central or Eastern time zone, if you're in California, good morning. If you're in Hawaii, don't spill the milk on your Cheerios. It's a pleasure to be with you folks. Thank you so much for taking your time, which is your most valuable commodity, to spend a little bit of it with us today. My name is Jim Smith. I'm privileged to be a certified travel industry executive. I have the initial CTIE after my name, and that serves two purposes. It promotes my dedication to the industry, and it also helps me differentiate when people try to find me online. So if you're ever looking for me, it's Jim Smith CTIE on Facebook, LinkedIn, and if you stick a www in front of it and a .com at the back of it, you'll find the website. We do that too. Before I dive into the subject matter, it's fun. I've been doing this for about 45 years, since I'm 16 years old, and I read a lot, but never read books. I read a lot of trade publications. And today I saw something that should make NACTA members feel really good about themselves. 6 out of 10 NACTA members grew sales in 2015, 60% of the market. And as your president, Ann Chamberlain, says, as the independent agent community continues to grow, industry suppliers are allocating more resources trying to better engage these travel sellers. So what we're here to do today is to invite you to help deliver an accessible world. Special Needs Group is the leading global provider of all things accessible and special needs driven services, products to assist folks with the need for a little bit of an extra boost, and it's a growing segment of the market. What we're going to do today specifically is preview a 3-module online certification program. And if you've taken it already, you're going to find this to be a refresher course and some new information. If you haven't taken it before, it's free, so it fits right in the budget, and it's available at the Special Needs Group website, www.specialneedsgroup.com, and you'll see that information at the conclusion. But we're going to jump and hit the highlights, because after each of the modules, there is a brief test. Now, I'm going to confess that I wrote the test. I passed the test, so you folks should be just fine. And I have an hour for the webinar, but it's not about how much time I can take. It's about respecting your time. So we're going to try and be in and out of here in about a half hour with the presentation. So strap in. This isn't for the meek. Yeah, because that, folks, is a comical and whimsical way of really depicting the spirit of travelers and people that have disabilities, and some people that have chronic special needs. Uh, Disability tends to do one of two things to people. It usually always does one, and that's shut them down. But with most folks, and the human spirit being what it is, we're an amazingly resilient species, us humans. And once folks finally come to grips with the anger and the denial, and they get to the acceptance stage, that's just about the way they roll. Give them a rolly board, hook it onto a mobility scooter with some munchies, some hydration, throw on a whimsical scarf, and it's off to the races. And I speak with a fairly good degree of authority on the topic because I'm a disabled American veteran myself. I was a hospital corpsman in the Navy. Couldn't find a day job, so the Navy got me for a while, but I've been around this market segment just about my entire life. So what we're going to do today is try to right-size your expectations about how you can best service this market and deal with it and actually augment your businesses to a tremendous extent, because we're going to introduce you to the world's fastest growing demographic. Hopefully along the way you'll pick up one or two things that will add to your sales skill sets. And everybody in the industry, if you go to conferences, all the talking heads tell you have to differentiate, you have to add value. Folks, I was a retail travel agent full-time for 6 years. I've never stopped being an agent since I got in the business, regardless of what jobs I had. And trust me when I tell you, you will differentiate and you will add tremendous value when you start becoming knowledgeable about this segment and how to best service it. I'm going to ask you to join the over 2,800 travel professionals who have achieved their SNG Certified Accessible Travel Advocate designation in the last 4.5 years. They're a great group. But more importantly than anything else in sales, which I've been doing probably since I started talking, it's really critical that we ask the right questions. It's the old story. Great salespeople ask great questions. They're not afraid of silence, and they take great notes. And a lot of the things about this market, the precepts, some of the things that we believe is that aren't disabilities and special needs the same, and isn't this just a niche? Doesn't it apply to old people and their parents? And I don't know any disabled people. Well, right off the bat, number 4 is off the table, because you know me a little bit. And, yeah, I might be old, but I'll be immature forever. So let's talk about it. Now, unfortunately, special needs travelers are just everyday people, a little bit different than maybe some other people. They could be families with young kids. They could be returning vets. The elderly, pre- and post-surgical conditions require some special attention, a little bit of love and care. And then you get the occasional, I wrenched my back, I twisted my knee, I broke my ankle, and I'm going on vacation in a week. Believe it or not, one of the largest segments of the market that special needs group serves are people we call slow walkers. And they go to the supermarket pretty well. They go to the back of the store and get their frozen goods and make it back to the checkout counter, and they're fine. But if you put them in a big box store like a Target or a Walmart or a Home Depot, Lowe's, any of those big box stores, they might not have the stamina. They might have some COPD, and they're not able to comfortably get through a big box store, so they might opt for that free scooter at the front of the store. Well, delete big box store, insert big cruise ship, large resort, and it's pretty much the same picture. And for travel to be enjoyable, it's got to be comfortable. And then that's a whole bunch of categories. We look at those with chronic disabilities as a totally separate entity. And when we get into the numbers, you'll see what we're talking about. But one thing about disability, it really doesn't care who, what, when, where, how you got there, what you are, how you practice your life in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, disability is equal opportunity. If it wants you, it tends to get you. It does have one market segment it tends to prefer, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Now, the Americans with Disabilities Act, this is fairly important as it relates to the test, was enacted in 1990 to protect civil rights, and ironically, it was modeled very closely after the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It was amended in 2008. They put a little bit more teeth in it, and what it basically did was it recognized and protected the rights of Americans with disabilities. Now, if any of you were on this call were born prior to 1973, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. We live in a country today that physically looks a little bit different than the country before 1990. And if you were born in 73 or before, you remember what 1990 looked like. We didn't have cutouts and curbs, so people in motor scooters and wheelchairs and power chairs or walkers or rollators could easily get across a street, something that simple. We didn't have ramps going into buildings where there were steps. We didn't have grab rails and restrooms and showers in hotels. And basically what ADA says is, listen, we recognize that you folks have been dealt a pretty nasty hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the barriers, the physical barriers, and give you a shot to live full and complete lives, just like everybody else. We're just going to take all these obstacles out of your way that prohibit you from living a full and complete life. And what you see underneath there, those 10 icons, logos, lections that become part of our vernacular. Now, ADA prohibits discrimination due to a disability. Now let's talk at a high level, that 40,000-foot level, and break it down into two types of disability. We have physical, which would include mobility and stamina, sight, hearing, and speech. And you know, if you're paying attention to what's going on around you, those 5 types of physical disability are relatively easy to spot. Unfortunately, disabilities can also be invisible. And included in that list, there's emotional disorders, learning disorders, and you know, it's sad, but it seems with the passage of time, we're seeing more and more invisible disabilities, ADD, autism, just a whole litany of some pretty debilitating disorders that aren't always detectable to the human eye. So I guess the moral of this story is just because you don't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. Use of the dreaded double negative to make a positive. But let's ask you a question. How many Americans do you think live each day with disabilities? What percent of the population? And when this syllabus was written, there were 311 million people in the United States as of the 2010 census. Survey says it's a huge market no matter how you slice or dice it, because 20% of the population has some form of chronic disability, 24/7, 365. And at the point in time when this research was conducted, that represented over 63 million people, or better put, 1 in 5 families. Now, a little earlier, I alluded to the fact that disability has one market, one demographic it kind of favors. Yeah, the body's a machine. These things that house our souls, our spirits, and like any machine, over time, the longer you own the machine, the more prevalent it becomes to break down. You take it in for more frequent servicing, and I know at 61, I'm finding body parts that didn't exist in my 30s. And some days I run around like a madman looking for body parts that used to be there that aren't there anymore some days. It happens. But once you get to age 65, the moral of this story is disability jumps from 1 in 5 families to 1 in 4 families. And that's a huge increase, because it's more than just 1 to 5, 1 to 4. That's 25%. And that's a big jump, especially when you're looking at numbers as large as the U.S. population and how many households that represents. And these numbers are the numbers that will appear on the test. We're going to be refreshing the syllabus probably early next year. Some new research has just become available, with more coming down the pipeline. And I will tell you up front that these numbers are the numbers that you want for the test, but they're understated by today's reality. It was tough getting really timely information on this market. It always has been. In any event, the market is robust. $220 billion in discretionary income. That's funny money. With a $13.6 billion annual travel spend and 32 million vacations taken each year. And when you think it through, it's not surprising that 85% of that travel is conducted with others. Here's the number that slays me, and this is from a 1998 Fortune survey. 24 million people that have chronic disabilities say they would travel or travel more frequently if somebody just took care of them and just met their needs. Now, as a retail agent, I know that you have clients that are going to look for a 7-category upgrade on a 6-category ship. They're going to ask you for a $400 onboard credit for the $299 inside cabin they just purchased. And I'm not going to say that anybody with disabilities will never behave like that, because you never say never. But being around this market for as long as I have, I can tell you this: they tend to be, as a market segment, fiercely loyal. And let's face it, disability, death, infertility, things like that, leprosy, don't usually come up as icebreakers at cocktail parties. And it isn't always easy for people to talk about it or deal with it, because it kind of puts us out of our comfort zone sometimes, and that's more than understandable. The easiest way to deal with this marketplace with the best results is to just treat them like everybody else, like you would any other client. Just give them the respect, give them the consideration, give them the empathy you give any client. But I will tell you, the one thing you don't want to do is ever look at a disabled traveler or someone with a disability, as the landscapers make noise outside in South Florida today. You never want to look at anybody, sorry about that, you never want to look at anybody with a disability and say, "Oh, you poor thing, look at you, are you okay?" Because you know what, folks, they know what they've got, they've reconciled it, they deal with it. Just treat them like everybody else and you're going to be fine. A market that I should be part of, but I refuse steadfastly to join, the mature American market, taking 340 million trips each year. Now, from a marketing perspective, okay, because we all have to be our own marketeers. When you look at developing your sales and marketing plan for a year, 3 years, 5 years, where you think you want to be, I'm a big believer that you go fishing where the fish are biting. And the millennials are a great market, absolutely. But they haven't started buying their first sets of braces for their kids yet, and their first homes in many cases. And I would tell you that there are two attributes that I always enjoy when I'm looking at leisure travelers that want to go on vacation. And that's time and money. Those are pretty good motivators. So, sure market. And then included in this, almost in some cases, is the baby boom generation. And we're special unto ourselves. Those of us born between January of 46, December of 64, I was born smack dab in the middle in 55. That's 74 million in the States, another 11 million up in Canada. And back on January 1st, 2011, we started turning 65 years old at the rate of 10,000 a day. And this continues on a daily basis until 2030, December 31st. It's the fastest growing demographic worldwide. And if you'll remember, when you turn 65, it's a magic number in terms of disabilities and the incidence in the average household. Jumps from 1 in 5 to 1 in 4. So what I'd like to do is go off script here for a second and talk about the psychographics of the baby boomer market and what makes us so special. Because when you really trace it back, we're the first generation that grew up with travel as a birthright. And when we started traveling, it was a very different experience than it is today. Back in 1963, at the age of 8, I remember getting on a flight from Phoenix to New York with my mom, and you would have sworn everyone on that flight was heading towards weekend religious services, because the ladies had the pillbox hats with the doilies and the mink stole with the mink head still talking. The guys had the fedoras and the top coats and the three-piece suit. I mean, people were styling to go flying. It was something special. These days, the only people dressed like that, travel industry professionals trying to get bumped up to first class. Only half kidding. I am one. You know, the other thing about baby boomers, there's a lot of things that make us unique, but we were the first generation that was marketed to with the promise, have it your way. Remember that old Burger King commercial? And we said as a generation, wait a minute, we can have it the way we want it, not the way you tell us we have to have it. Oh, we like that. We like getting things our way. And if you look around you in 2016, there isn't anything that you cannot purchase. I have a bedspread on my bed that's a collage of pictures of my twin 23-year-old boys at various stages of their development, or lack of, whatever. They're my kids, they're DNA challenged. But in any event, we get things the way we want them. And the other thing about this generation that makes us a little unique is that there's about $1.3 trillion out there in intergenerational wealth transfer that's going to hit baby boomers that they've yet to reap. So it's an aging segment. 60 is the new 40, allegedly. Some days, yes. Other days, maybe. But definitely, we don't behave the way our grandparents behaved, that's for sure. So this market, I think, when you're looking at a marketing plan, at a business plan, it's got sustainability. It's got some legs for another 10 to 15 years. And you know what? It's not a bad place to go hunting. Again, it's really, really critical to ask the right questions and never overestimate anyone's knowledge. The one thing I would ask you to do is right up front when you're qualifying your clients, and even if it's a repeat client, and you're just double checking to make sure you have a current email address and contact information, insert one question, because you could be dealing with a client for 5, 10, 20 years, but life changes. Ask them if anybody in their traveling party has any special needs, mobility, oxygen, because so many people don't travel, ladies and gentlemen, because they don't think this stuff is available to them. And for years, agents as a community had no idea where to go for one provider that can do this on their behalf. So you never want to under or overestimate anybody's knowledge. And a case in point, when you're talking to your clients, we're professionals, we do this for a living, but you take some clients and they might think that an oceanfront hotel is an oceanfront hotel is an oceanfront hotel, which it is. Unless and except your room's not on the oceanfront side. Now, whoops. Excuse me. Loosen up behind the wheel of the keyboard. Come on, get back here. The Diplomat Hotel. Sorry about that. In beautiful Hollywood, Florida, is a great oceanfront hotel, but the rooms you're looking at now don't face the ocean. They face west. Now, as it happens at this hotel, you have a lovely view of Florida's intercoastal, but it's not oceanfront. So a lot of people think that a wheelchair is a wheelchair is a wheelchair. Well, that's the end of Module 1. Let's slide a little bit into Module 2, which talks about the equipment. And you're going to find that a wheelchair in the upper left-hand corner there is a wheelchair, and a scooter is a mobility scooter, and a power chair is a power chair. But these things each come in 3 different sizes, and it's based on the client's weight. You're going to find that for a wheelchair and a scooter, only one size requires an accessible stateroom, but a power chair, no matter what power chair you're in, if you're on a cruise ship, you're going to need an accessible stateroom, because the doorways on accessible staterooms on cruise ships and in a lot of hotels are wider than the typical doorway. You'll learn the difference between rollators and walkers and just all sorts of things that, it's funny because whether or not you think you're ever going to find the need for this professionally in servicing your clients, unfortunately, there's a better than even chance that somebody you know or love one day, that somebody that's close to you is going to require this. And the information imparted in the 65-minute certification program is invaluable in that regard. Joy on the Beach is so cool. This thing comes broken down in a duffel bag, and in the upper left-hand side there, you see these big yellow rubber wheels. They come pre-inflated with air. The frame is made out of extruded aluminum, which they make airplanes from, and this is a quick-dry, really durable mesh fabric. It takes me about 2 minutes to put it together. The average person puts it together in about a minute, operationally challenged. But here's the money shot. You got to have a client that's not ambulatory, either scooter, chair-bound, bedridden, whatever. If they can get a companion to just tilt this thing back and push, and the client with the disability or the special need always had a dream of putting their toes in the water, never thought they'd fulfill it. Got to tell you something. These wheels cut through sand like a hot knife goes through warm butter. And when you get the look on somebody's face, or you get to see the picture of a client, like you see that client in that picture, it takes the feel-good of what we do as travel professionals to a whole nother dimension. Yeah, we like to keep people happy, but we're also in the business of business. But this feel-good, it's hard to come by. And there's other types of equipment that have recently been introduced, and we keep introducing new stuff as the technology devises it. These are foldable scooters. You can fit about 4 of these in the average trunk of a car. When we did this slide, we had them available in Florida, South Florida, New York, and select West Coast cities. to just about any place you need them now. So that's do a quick overview. And by the way, when you're doing the modules, if the pot boils over on the stove and you have to shut down the computer, the dog's eating the cat or cat's eating the dog, whatever the case may be, when you come back to the program, it's intuitive. It knows where you were. You can go back and review. So it's user-friendly, as we say. In Module 3, what we're going to expose you to are 4 real-life scenarios featuring travel professionals interacting with existing and prospects. And you're going to listen to one person play the role of travel agent on a telephone call, the other person either being a client or a family member or a prospect that has a special need or a disability. These are 4, I call this module where the rubber meets the road. These are the most likely scenarios you're going to bump up against based on the experience that special needs group has. And what we're going to do is uncover some best practices, give you some tricks of the trade, some tips on how to navigate some of these waters if they're new to you, if you've done it before. It never hurts to have a refresher course. So this is a pretty cool module. We have graphics, so it's just not listening along. You get to stay visually stimulated throughout. So that basically is a quick overview of the certification program, a little bit about Special Needs Group. The company started out almost 10 years ago. 10-year anniversary is coming up on Valentine's Day 17. Started out exclusively servicing the cruise industry, but after doing that successfully for a number of years, we realized that the company was able to handle pre and post in embarkation and debarkation cities globally. And so as the company got more and more ensconced in land-based services, we figured why not start some stuff here domestically, and let's start small. So we started with Orlando and Vegas and all of Italy, which happens to be the largest outbound destination for U.S. travelers. And we looked at what's hot: Cancun, Riviera Maya, the DR, and we're expanding the footprint in Europe. European river cruises can be a little dicey, so you want to talk with the lines, because the biggest challenge you can have on riverboats is when you dock in a little city, and those are great experiences. I did one with my kids a few years back. It was mind-blowing. But sometimes they dock abreast, not bow to stern like the big blue water ships do. So traversing a scooter sometimes across 2 or 3 riverboats to get to land can be tough. In the U.S., it's different. We have the Americans with Disabilities Act, so any of your river cruises in the USA are totally ADA compliant. We were going to do river cruises in Providence, but they haven't dredged the river yet, so we figured we'd settle for the full foliage cruises. And don't ask me how this one got on the list, ladies and gentlemen, but all I know is this. Should you find yourself in Kobe, Japan, you can have the best steak in the world while you're seated in a mobility scooter. I don't know. To do business with Special Needs Group, you need to register. So it's the old www.specialneedsgroup.com. If you'd like, you can do the deep extension /agents. If you just want to go to the website, there's an agent tab. To register with the company, just use whatever industry identifier you use to claim commissions. And, you know, a lot of suppliers in the industry, I know this because I'm on every mailing list a travel agent can be on. Once they get your email address, they want to be your inbox's best buddy. Nah. If you're lucky, we'll send you maybe 2, 3 communications in 2 months. Typically, you'll get a newsletter every month just to bring you up to speed with what's going on with the market and the company and your role in this process. And maybe once every 2 months, we'll slide something in if something's really going on that's noteworthy. The certification program is available to you. Once again, it's free. If it's free, it's for me. Then I'll go through some of the benefits you get once you get certified. I will tell you, if any of you are pursuing your ACC, your Accredited Cruise or Master Cruise Counselor, MCC with CLIA, this is the only third-party program that CLIA recognizes for certification credit, and since they've been certifying travel agents back in 1992. So we're very proud to have that distinction. Special Needs Group, like I say, 10 years old. Last year, 150 ports and cities were serviced in 35 countries. Your cruise can start in Czechoslovakia, terminate in Denmark. You can go one way. It's not a problem. The equipment typically is in the stateroom, waiting for your client. In a hotel, it's one of three places as a rule. It's either with the bellman, the concierge, or the front desk, and we'll let you know ahead of time where it's going to be waiting. A couple of the cruise lines, we have a kiosk available, so if clients want the equipment curbside at the pier, with certain cruise lines, we can do that. But typically, the way it works is the equipment's in the stateroom waiting for your client. Okay, the cruise line, just like the airline has to get the passenger from the curb to the seat. Cruise line technically has the same responsibility to get them from the curb into the stateroom. Once they're in the stateroom, that's where the equipment is. When it's time to disembark at the end of their vacation with their carry-on luggage and their 5-pack of booze from St. Thomas, they leave the equipment right where they found it. So it really is hassle-free for the client. We're recognized and referred by all the major cruise lines, and Special Needs Group is the exclusive accessibility provider for Norwegian, Oceania, and the owners of the most luxurious cruise ship in the world, Regent Seven Seas. And we work extra hard. Truly, I've watched these guys jump through hoops. I've been consulting to this company for 5.5 years on travel agency matters. I've watched them jump through hoops to make sure that no stone gets unturned in servicing your client. And if they can't help you, they'll send you in the right direction. The staff over there at SNG is great. They're not a travel agency. They'll not compete for your clients, and they don't remarket to your clients either. I mentioned some of the benefits you'll get as a result of getting certified. All agents registered with Special Needs Group have access to the Sales and Marketing Resource Center with tips, information, and how-tos and how to better serve the market. Any place you see red currently, that means that that content behind that red copy, you click on that, and it's only for the agents that are certified. It gets a little bit more robust. It gets a little bit more in-depth, and it's a Special Needs Group way of saying thank you for the certification. We appreciate it. You can rent equipment over the phone, on the web, and so can consumers, but we'd rather do business with travel agents. We'll be redoing the website before the end of the year, and this is currently on the tab to rent equipment, where we're asking consumers if they'd like help planning their vacation, please click here to find the nearest certified accessible travel advocate. Takes them to the screen over here on the right where they pop in their zip code, they set their default range, and we send them back everybody that fits those parameters: name, rank, serial number, email address, telephone contact. It's fun when you have agents come up to you at trade shows and tell you they got leads and they close business as a result of being on the site. The sales and marketing guide has been done using real-life people in real-life situations. It's available electronically, and if you're certified, it can be personalized. This tab took about a year to build out. It was a pain in the neck, but worth it, because it's the cruise accessibility tab. It's about the 5th tab in on the site. So you click that, and you're going to get a list of some of the most popular cruise lines, about 18, 19 of them, I think. And then you click on a cruise line, let's say Norwegian, it comes over here, and it'll default all the ships in the fleet. Click on a ship, in this case the Breakaway, take you over here to the far right-hand frame, and we'll give you all the information you can find any place else on the ship except pricing and itineraries, but everything you might want to know. When was it built? When was it last dry docked? How many cabins? How many dining rooms? Blah, blah, blah. My favorite one, how much does it weigh? I used to love when clients ask me that question. I'd look at them and say, what, you going to lift it? I've never seen anybody lift a cruise ship, but people want to know what they weigh, so that's there too. But what makes this really super cool and one of the best bookmarks in the industry is that for every ship, we highlight exactly what accessible features are available on that ship to service the market. So in addition to the granular information, you get some really cool information. And we like to have fun, if you haven't figured that out by now. And we do this thing called Scooting to Charity at trade shows. We actually conducted our first event at a NACTA conference down here in South Florida a few years back. And in the lower left-hand corner, number 2, Bob Douglin, demonstrating how not to operate a scooter. Keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle. Do not distract the operator, Bob. But we do have a lot of fun with it. We collect money, which is totally optional, for Camilla's House, a great charity. And we just want to get agents behind the wheel and demystify this whole thing for you. because I was an agent and I didn't sell stuff I didn't really know. I felt really comfortable selling stuff I knew when I was starting out. This is easy. And with that, thank you. There's a whole lot more to this, folks, but like I say, out of respect for your time, I think you'll find the certification program to be enriching, informative, and like I say, it multitasks. You can use it professionally, and hopefully you'll never need it, but you might need it personally. Well, I'm going to leave this contact information up on the screen. That email address, agents@specialneedsgroup.com, is monitored 7 days a week, okay? We try to give a little work-life balance to the staff and kind of suggest that on their days off they don't pay attention to their business email. So that address is always monitored. The 800 number's there. And like them on Facebook, love them on Twitter, tweet away. And if there's anything I can answer that might be, a question in your mind, there's no such thing as stupid questions, just ridiculous answers. Maureen?
Yeah, you're awesome. You're awesome. There's a couple of good questions that came up. One of the questions that just popped up, and I want to make a little bit of clarification. Someone had mentioned that NACTA is their host agent. Just need a little clarification about that.
Yeah.
NACTA is not a host agency. It is a member association.
NACTA is an association.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't provide CLIA numbers or IATA numbers. It's a membership association. So whoever you signed up with NACTA for as your host, that is the number that Jim would be looking for, is whoever provides you. Like the examples would be Oasis.
Yeah, the Oasis number, or if you're independent. A lot of independent agents have gotten numbers. I keep getting Facebook messages from my old IT guy. God, stop. I'm on a webinar, buddy. CLIA, for example. There are other numbers that are out there that vendors recognize for commission purposes. And if you're hosted, you use your host number, and the commissions go to your host, and they redistribute based on the schedule they have in place with you. Couldn't be any easier. And everything we do is commissionable.
Excellent. And if people are going to be using equipment, do they rent it through your site? What's kind of the process?
There are 3 different ways you can do it, okay, as an agent. You can either call us, you can book it online. We even have a widget, and I like widgets, especially when you can slap this widget on your website. And if you want, your clients can book the equipment themselves off your website with you getting commission. To learn more about that, just simply call the number, the 800 number, or shoot an email to agents@specialneedsgroup.com, and staff will be happy to help you, walk you through that. Pretty easy process. All that said, if you ever find yourself in a situation where there's a client, and that client might have needs that are beyond what you feel is your capacity, your scope to really handle and be comfortable handling, don't fret. Simply call Special Needs Group, give them your contact information, give them the client's contact information, advise the client that Special Needs Group will reach out to them, which the staff will do. They'll assess the client's situation. If the client wants, the equipment that they require will be reserved for them. As soon as that call is finished, and as they're in the process of sending you an electronic confirmation, someone on the team will give you a call and let you know what they did for your client and how much the sale was, and take your commission. It's all about delivering an accessible world and making travel the ultimate freedom, which it truly represents.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the questions that came up is, can you give a little bit of clarification on the widgets and how that works? Is it something
like I
that
say,
they would...
best served in a one-off conversation, because
Perfect.
I mentioned that I'm operationally challenged. I'm also technically reclined. So I'm the last person that's going to give you a good answer. But the bottom line is this. They're able to hand you off a piece of code and a graphic image that gets embedded on your site. It's tracked back to you for commission purposes. So your clients can basically book this stuff while you're sleeping, and you can make money. And like I say, the staff is way better versed in this than I. I know where my skill sets begin and end.
Oh, no, that's perfect. That's perfect.
45 years, you figure out where that leash ends.
That's right. You go, ooh, delegation, call the 1-800 number.
Ed, go to somebody that knows. I'm not going to give you bad information. I like you guys too much.
I know. You know, and your program has a special place in my heart. My cousin's husband has a canine companion. So whenever we travel, we try to be able to be, you know, as you mentioned, when you start to have people in your life who do need assistance, you start paying more attention to it. It's not, oh, those people down the street, or, oh, those clients over there. Absolutely. And
Lorraine, you want to hear a really strange statistic? You know how we had the old movie 6 Degrees of Separation with Sidney Poitier? And the premise of that movie is that you are only 5 people removed from me knowing people in common, right?
Right.
That's that we're only 6 people away from somebody that we know in common. Well, in the disability world, it's 2.8. Okay?
Wow.
So it does have that kind of an impact, and unfortunately, that kind of a reach.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like 2 degrees of separation. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
2.8.
So just 2.8. Thank you. One of the attendees asked if she had certified in the past. How long is the certification?
Oh, your certification's good as long as it's going to be good, and that's going to be forever. Now, what we are going to do, when we cut over to the new certification program, for the agents that have already been certified, you'll be grandfathered, but we're going to do an updated, excuse me, if you will, Cliff Notes version of what's changed since you got certified, so you can be up to speed on the latest numbers, and if anything else has changed that's really relevant, that's going to resonate, we'll highlight that, but that's already on the drawing board.
Got it.
But you don't have to get recertified. That's going to be optional.
And honestly, speaking as an agent who's an active seller of travel, you know what? It doesn't hurt us to do a refresh once in a while. I mean, even if you're not taking the module, just go through them. If you're worried about taking the test, you know what? You've already passed. Just check the material again.
People, Lorraine, in a formal life, and they went through 2 professional growth experiences every year. One was mandatory. It was a sales 101 class, because you always have to revisit the essentials, because it comes down to blocking and tackling and X's and O's. And sometimes we forget that, and, you know, we get wrapped up in the events of the day. And they would go for one thing that got approved that they wanted to go for that would enhance them. And so the training thing is, it never goes out of vogue. Never.
Nope. Nope. That was the last question that I had, and I think that
45 minutes.
I know. Look at you. I mean, so like people have like an extra 5 or 10 minutes that they had blocked out.
Hey, listen, I'll take 15 extra minutes in my day any day of the week. Listen, thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Lorraine. You're an asset to the organization and humanity.
The check's on the way.
Thanks, dear.
So, no kidding. I want to remind everybody that the November NACTA conference, which hopefully Jim will say, awesome.
And we will be providing complimentary special needs mobility equipment to any NACTA agents that might require it during their time in South Florida for this event. So we'll have more information for you as we get closer, but just know that we'll take care of you.
Nice.
It will be on us, okay?
Nice. The NACTA conference is going to be November 3rd through 9th. Just as a reminder for everybody, the first 3 nights are going to be at the Westin Fort Lauderdale Hotel. The last 3 nights is going to be on the Celebrity Infinity Cruise. Jim, are you going to be on that too?
I don't know if I'm allowed back on. I got arrested one time for impersonating a human being.
Yeah,
so I don't know if I'm allowed.
And they're pretty strict about who they let on the ship, so.
Yeah, we have a bunch of conferences down here during that period. Believe it or not, we have 4 shows to cover in 10 days.
Wow, and you've not learned how to clone yourself. You know, you really need to get on it.
Nobody wants the job, Lorraine. Can you blame them?
In closing, just a reminder for everybody to set their calendars. If they have not yet, the 2017 NACTA conference has been scheduled. We're giving everybody way advance notice that they can get it on their calendars. It'll be in Anchorage, Alaska. Woo woo, bucket list item for so many people. It'll be in fall, which is an awesome time to be there, September 13th through 16th. The host hotel will be the Captain Cook, and they have lots of things that are going to be lined up pre and post for this conference. We want everybody to have plenty of time to get it on the calendars. It's an amazing part of the country that you may not normally get to, so get it on the calendars. More announcements will be coming, and if you haven't scheduled for this November's, please do go to the NACTA website and register for both events. You do have to go to the land portion if you're going to be on the cruise portion. So the rules are the rules. You're not just there to take a short sea trip. So Jim, thank you again, and I want to thank you for being one of our top favorite suppliers. Yeah.
Tell that to all the suppliers. Thanks, folks. You all have a great week. We got a lot.
All right, everybody.
Out of the park.
Bye-bye.